Do you know that feeling of walking into an apartment slightly bigger than yours and thinking, I deserve this. I've worked so hard. The rent is only a little more expensive. That a little more feels completely reasonable at the moment you sign the contract. But what no one tells you is that this a little more expensive will cost far more than you imagine. And I'm not just talking about money. My name is Nick, and I spend far too much time thinking about how seemingly small financial decisions turn into traps that last for decades. If you really want to understand how money works, not just survive month to month, but actually build wealth, subscribe to the channel and leave a like if this video changes the way you think about where you live. Before getting into the numbers, I want to ask you something. When you think about cutting expenses to save more money, what comes to mind first? Most people start thinking about breakfast bought outside the house, the streaming service they almost never use, or that delivery app that has become a habit. And that's fine. Those things add up. But here's the problem. You can eliminate every subscription you have, stop eating out completely, buy only the basics at the grocery store, and still be destroying wealth every month without realizing it. Because there is one spending category that almost no one questions as much as they should. And it happens to be the most expensive of all. Housing. There's a huge difference between what you pay in rent and what that money could be doing for you. And when you truly understand that difference, not just as theory but as concrete math, the way you make decisions about where to live changes forever. Let's start with a simple number. Suppose you live in an apartment that costs $2,000 per month. A larger and more comfortable place appears for $2,500. The difference seems small. $500. Less than many people spend on clothes or dining out during a bad month. But let's follow that logic to where it really leads. $500 per month is $6,000 per year. Over 10 years, that's $60,000 spent on additional housing. But even that isn't the real number. The real number is what those $60,000 could have become if you had invested it instead of paying extra rent. At an average growth rate of 8% per year, those $500 invested monthly over 10 years become almost $90,000. In 20 years, more than $300,000. In 30 years, nearly $800,000. $800,000. Because of a $500 difference in rent that seemed small. This is what economists call opportunity cost, and it's probably the most ignored financial concept among ordinary people. Every dollar you spend is not just that dollar. It's everything that dollar could have become. And when you start seeing your spending through that lens, some decisions that once seemed neutral start to look very different. But before we continue, I need to be honest with you about something. The problem isn't living well. Comfort, space, a place you enjoy, all of that has real value. The problem is how most people make that decision. And that's the central point of this video. When someone decides to move to a larger place, it's rarely a purely rational decision. It's an emotional decision, justified later with logic. I need space to work from home. The extra bedroom will be useful when guests visit. It's a better, safer neighborhood. All of these reasons can be valid, but there's a psychological mechanism happening underneath that is important to understand. Researchers call it hedonic adaptation. It's the human tendency to quickly adapt to new circumstances and return to the same baseline level of satisfaction. That means the new apartment, bigger, nicer, more beautiful, will feel incredible for a few weeks, maybe a month, and then it becomes just where you live. Normal, ordinary, and the desire for the next upgrade begins to appear before you've even finished unpacking the boxes. That's not weakness, it's biology. But understanding this mechanism can save you from decades of bad financial decisions. Now let's talk about something that may sound counterintuitive. Living in a place smaller than what you could afford isn't a sacrifice. It's a strategy. Think about it this way. If you earn $5,000 per month and could afford to spend up to a quarter of your income on housing, that would be $1,250. But let's say you choose to live somewhere that costs $800. That $450 difference per month might seem small, but invested at 8% per year for 5 years, it becomes more than $33,000. Over 10 years, almost $82,000. Over 20 years, you're talking about $265,000. $265,000 built not because you earned more, not because you found some miracle investment, but because you made a different decision about where to live. And here's the effect most people don't see. When you live below your means, you're not just saving money. You remove pressure from your entire financial system. You have room to handle unexpected events without panic. You have the freedom to make career choices without depending on the next paycheck. You have capital ready to act when opportunities appear. There's a principle economists call the Ratchet Effect. The idea is simple. Expenses go up easily and come down with great difficulty. When you raise your standard of living, especially with housing, you create a psychological anchor that's very hard to let go of. You begin to feel that space, that neighborhood, that structure is the minimum acceptable level, and anything below it feels like an unbearable step backward. That's why so many people get stuck. Not because they earn too little, but because every salary increase is immediately absorbed by a lifestyle upgrade. And the upgrade that absorbs income more than anything else is housing. Let's do a quick thought experiment. Imagine two people. Both earn $5,000 per month. The first, let's call them Alex, rents an apartment for $1,500 per month in a convenient neighborhood. The second, let's call them Jordan, rents an apartment for $2,200 per month in a slightly nicer area. Alex invests the $700 difference every month. Jordan invests nothing because the higher rent leaves little margin. After 15 years, Alex has more than $240,000 invested, assuming 8% per year. Jordan has a history of living in nicer places and is in exactly the same financial position as when they started, maybe worse, because the higher lifestyle also created expensive habits in other areas. What's scary about this scenario isn't the final number. It's that Jordan didn't do anything wrong in the conventional sense. They paid their bills on time. They didn't waste money recklessly. They worked hard. The only difference was a choice about where to live that seemed completely reasonable at the moment it was made. Now you might be thinking, okay, but in some cities there's no option. Rent is high everywhere. And that's partially true. Real estate markets in large urban centers are brutally expensive. But here's the point I want to make clear. I'm not saying you need to live somewhere bad or unsafe to build wealth. I'm saying most people never calculate the real cost of a housing upgrade, not in monthly rent, but in lost wealth over time. And when you run that calculation, when you put the numbers into a compound interest calculator and see what an extra $100, $200, or $500 in rent per month becomes over 20 or 30 years, the decision to live slightly below your means stops looking like sacrifice and starts looking exactly like what it is, the smartest choice you can make. There's another side to this equation worth mentioning. Quality of life doesn't come from the size of your apartment. It comes from your financial margin. A person who lives in a smaller place but has 3 months of expenses saved, invests regularly, and sleeps peacefully every night lives better, in the real sense of the word, than someone who lives in a beautiful place but constantly worries about the next rent payment. Financial freedom isn't about having the best apartment. It's about having options, and options require money that is saved, not spent on extra square meters. Before we finish, I want to leave you with an idea that might surprise you. The decision about housing isn't just a financial decision, it's an identity decision. Many people live beyond their means not because they need the space, but because they feel that where they live says something about who they are. A bigger apartment in a better neighborhood feels like proof that you've made it somewhere. But here's the irony. The person who seems to be getting somewhere is often the one standing still. Because all the money that could be building real wealth is being consumed by the appearance of wealth. Real wealth is quiet. It's the number in your investment account. It's the freedom to change jobs without panic. It's the ability to say no when something isn't worth it. None of those things show up in the decoration of your apartment. Start running this calculation. Take the difference between what you pay for housing today and the maximum you could afford. Put that number into a compound interest calculator for 20 years. Look at the result. Then decide, with open eyes, whether that extra space is really worth what you're paying for it. Because the bigger apartment will feel normal in a few weeks. But the $800,000 you could have built? Those will never feel normal